Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on Clemson at the Voice of College Football. Thank you so much for joining me. We got a great show for you guys tonight. We're going to talk a little rankings, top five players leaving the program, top five players returning to the program. We're going to talk about ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips' comments on the possible changes coming to the ACC Championship game. Maybe they should just cancel it altogether. We'll talk about all of that and more coming up in tonight's show. But before we get into that, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. We're on the road to 6,000 subscribers, and your help with that would be greatly appreciated. Share the video with all of your college football friends and family. If they enjoy college football content, let them know about the All In Show with me and Jordan right here on Clemson at the Voice of College Football. And then last but certainly not least, if you would like to support what me and Jordan do here on the show, hit that super chat feature. It'll do two things. Obviously, help us out a great deal. And then it'll also ensure that your comment and or question attached to it will be read and responded to during the live show because as you guys know, at the end of every single show, we go to the comment section. We chop it up with you guys for, 30, 45 minutes, but we can't get to every single comment. So if you want to ensure that your comment is read and responded to, hit that super chat feature for us, and that would be greatly appreciated. And with all of that said, and without further ado, I'm going to bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. What's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
Good, man. You watching, kind of have this basketball game, watching this Chase Hunter masterclass going on in Little John Coliseum.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Just enjoying life. Life's good, man. Happy to be here. We're in the full swing of the off season, which sucks. National championship game was on Monday, officially concluding the season. So now we are full in off season mode. And I'm excited to talk about, the topics we got because, I'm not, especially with the way too early predictions, because we haven't really done that in the past. But honestly, everybody's dropping their way too early top 25s and all that, and it's like, hey, we might as well.
That's right. That's right.
Nobody goes back and looks at those really, and hey, we reserve the right to change our predictions down the road. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be a ton of fun. I love it. There are always good videos to watch and listen to, right? The way too early 2025 rankings. The curtain just closed on the 2024 season. You mentioned national title game this past Monday. Actually turned out to be a pretty good game. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, but a pretty good game overall. I think it turned out to be interesting. At the beginning, I wasn't so sure it was going to turn out to be interesting, but it did. And like you say, curtain call for the 2024 season, and in true college football YouTube fashion, we're going to turn the page and go to way too early top 25 predictions because what else are we supposed to do in the offseason as college football fans? So that's going to be a lot of fun to do tonight. I got a lot of snow where I'm at. I know the East Coast, the Southeast, if you will, kind of plastered with another snowpocalypse, if you will, for the second time this winter, which is really weird at this point. The alarming amount of snow that the South is receiving. So I don't know what's up with that, but it's fun nonetheless.
Yeah, well, here in Charlotte, we basically missed out. It snowed a little bit, but barely any cover. But then you've got, a lot of places, farther out east, in South and also in South Carolina. Louisiana is like in a winter wonderland right now. Like it's crazy. And then
I heard blizzard and Louisiana in the same sentence.
Yeah,
wild. I tell you, wild.
Crazy. I got a friend in Baton Rouge sent me a video, and it's like they got I think it was 4 or 5 inches. I'm like, this is Louisiana, man.
Louisiana. Are we talking about the same place? I don't know what happened. Maybe the earth flip-flopped on us. I don't know what happened. So it's pretty crazy.
Weather is weird, man.
It is super weird. Super weird. But hey, it makes for an interesting topic of discussion. So, with that said, we got 24 people in the live chat. Let's give a quick shout out to the comment section before we get started with tonight's show. Tiggs is in the house with the first comment of the night. Appreciate you. Also, one of our OGs and one of our moderators, John Sarian, same thing, one of our OGs and one of our moderators in here second. We got Kevin in here. Thanks for joining us. Jacob is in here. Intelligent Savage is in here. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you. Jay's Up Records is in here. And I believe that is everyone. If I missed you, it was not intentional. Thank you guys so much for being here. Get into the comment section. As you guys know, as I already mentioned, when we're done with the planned portion of the show, we're going to turn it over to you guys, the comment section. We're going to chop it up with you guys over there. So that's always fun. So continue to comment with each other during the show, and we'll get to the comment section here in a little bit, Jordan. But before we start with the first topic of the night, Jordan, ACC set a date for releasing the 2025 schedule. So that's going to be a lot of fun for us to kind of do in a future show to kind of break that down. They're going to release it on Monday, January 27th on the ACC network. So thought that was an honorable mention before we get into the show. That's something to look forward to for Clemson Tiger fans and ACC fans if you're not a Clemson fan. And then DeMonte Capehart still working out with the team. Looks like he's pretty much made his decision that he's going to come back to Clemson, just pending that NCAA decision on his medical waiver. So unless they deny it, it looks like we're going to have DeMonte Capehart back. So that's big news for the Clemson Tigers, I think.
And I know for people that are, and as far as the details of that, that when you're a graduate, there's a separate NFL draft deadline. He doesn't technically have to declare for the draft because he is a senior. So it really is just a matter of he has until February. I don't remember the exact date. Some 6th.
February 6th, I think.
Yeah, to not be in it, but
right.
he doesn't have to declare or anything like that. So we'll know pretty soon when the NCAA makes its decision, and they're not necessarily in any rush, I guess, to make that decision because he is a senior and he's not under the same rules as like a third year player would be. So that's really what it is. I definitely feel like he should get the waiver. I mean, the only reason he has to get his waiver is because in 2021 he played in 5 games, but the 5th game he played like a grand total of 1 snap.
Yeah.
So like I mean I've seen a lot more. I've seen a lot worse situations that got waivers than that. So like I mean I think he should get another year, and it'd be a great another key piece to bring back from this 2024 team. So
I mean, look, if they don't, just take the cornerbacks angle from Wisconsin and just sue the NCAA, and they'll just let you do whatever you want to do. So, but no, in all seriousness, I fully expect the NCAA to grant his waiver. I don't see any reason that they wouldn't. But again, it is the NCAA, so you never know. You would hope they would at least come down with a speedy decision, so that in which case he's not able to come back to school, he can, start pursuing the NFL draft angle that he would ultimately have to end up doing. So we'll see. We shall see. But hopefully we got our boy DeMonte Capehart back. That'll be a huge boost, huge shot in the arm for that defensive front this upcoming season, and another dog out there for Tom Allen to coach up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jackson Johnson gets into the chat section. Thank you so much. Guys, make sure you're using the Amazon link. The Voice of College Football has an Amazon link. It's in the description of this video. It's right there in this comment. You can click on that. And essentially what it is you do your normal purchasing as you always do on Amazon. You just use that Amazon link when you're checking out, and it gives a little kickback to the Voice of College Football. So doesn't cost you any more, doesn't disrupt your shopping experience in any way, but just helps us out a little bit right here at the Voice of College Football. So consider doing that for us. All right, Jordan, with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the show tonight. We got a lot to talk about. And we got the first thing we're going to talk about, Jordan. Are there changes coming to the college football playoff format in 2025? That's been a big topic of conversation ever since that final ranking of the college football playoffs came out, and SMU got in over Alabama and some other teams that people were lobbying for to get those positions. People have been complaining about the format of it, the seeding, how it kind of played out, how it seemed uneven for teams that were ranked 1 through 4 because of the clause in there. Everybody knows the 4 slots, as far as seeding goes for the 12-team playoff, could only go to conference champions. The 4 highest ranked conference champions had to take 1 through 4 and get an automatic bye. After the first iteration of the 12-team playoff, it appears that college football fans have decided they don't like it. Well, there's a couple issues when it comes to changing the format. A lot of people think it's just a snap of the finger and the format's going to be fixed, and we're all just going to agree on it. Well, you have to get 11 people on the college football playoff committee to agree on said change unanimously. If one of them disagree, the changes aren't going to happen, at least going into next season. Now, beyond 2025, there will be changes to the college football playoff because it's only a 2-year deal, right? So 2026 and beyond, we can talk about all the different tweaks and stuff that'll happen. But all 11 FBS conference commissioners, or 10 plus Notre Dame's athletic director, stupidest thing I've ever heard of, have to agree on a change in format should it happen for 2025, right? So a lot of people are saying you should just rank the teams as they are, right? No automatic buys for conference champions, get rid of that. One of the issues with that, Jordan, is I talked about the conference commissioners having to agree. That would include the Big 12, who benefited from that this past season, and the Mountain West, who benefited from that clause this past season. Oh, and by the way, they got an extra $8 million to their conference funds because of those rules that were in place, or that format that was in place. So basically how it broke down is if you make the playoff, you get $4 million, right, per team. If you make it to the next round, which those automatic buys automatically make it to the next round, so that's $8 million that the automatic buys got before they even played a game in the college football playoff. And they would be giving up that financial gain if they were to agree to nix the format of the 4 highest seeded conference champions getting the automatic bye. Your thoughts, Jordan? Is that going to get done? I know it was talked about that they would meet briefly before the national championship game. All the conference commissioners would be there, but it was only a 90-minute meeting. Do you anticipate any changes for the 2025 12-team playoff format? And does it make sense for conference commissioners from, the ACC, the Big 12, the Mountain West, basically those not named SEC or Big 10? Does it make sense for those conference commissioners to sign off on any sort of change?
No, and no and no. Honestly, I just at least as far as the power balance between the power or autonomous conferences is concerned, it's as it's as wide as a gap as ever been, and it's only going to get wider. I mean, listen, I think that at the end of the day, I think the format is going to change in 2026 anyway, because the SEC and the Big Ten are going to want to you know, they're going to want to be able to have a way to get as many teams as possible, and also be advantageously seated as best as possible. So, I mean, I definitely don't anticipate changes to the format this year, and I don't know if the SEC and Big Ten are going to push that hard because they know that it's only a 2-year deal, and they they're probably going to make another change, whether it's and with potential if they expand to 16 that or 14 or whatever they choose to do, that's already going to entail a change in the format and stuff. I'm interested to see how that goes because I understand the frustration with only reserving the top 4 seats to conference champions to a degree, but I kind of think there's probably going to be some sort of compromise in the middle where I think conference champions are still going to get guaranteed, spots, but I think they're going to eliminate the reservation of the top 4 for conference champions only. You can have a conference champion in the top 4 seeds, or in hell, they all could end up being conference champions, but it's not a requirement to be in the top 4. I think ultimately I wouldn't hate that because it definitely would make more sense as far as seeding. Like it was crazy to me that the number 1 overall seed in Oregon had to play either Ohio State or Tennessee. And then you have a team like shoot. I mean, you can pick one. And then Boise State, or who is the other? What was the Big 12 champion?
What's that?
The Big 12. Boise State or oh my God, Arizona State. Duh.
Arizona State. Yeah, there you go.
It's kind of they had to play. At least they had more favorable paths, and then you have a team like Penn State who didn't win their conference, and had the easiest, arguably the easiest path to the semifinal of anybody. Like, so I understand the uneven seating because it benefited and also hurt. The SEC and the Big Ten, and it benefited and hurt the Big 12 and the Mountain West and the ACC to a degree. So like I think it is a weird system. Like I've seen some people like propose like reseeding after every round. Like I mean that might work. I don't think any of that is going to come in 2025. That's for sure. Right. But I think that ultimately this format is probably not going to persist after this year.
Right. Yeah.
I don't expect any change. I don't expect any changes coming prior to this year. That's for sure.
No, I agree. Certainly you're going to be hard pressed to convince 10 conference commissioners and Notre Dame's athletic director to change the format, to unanimously agree on a change in format. Because like I said, the real crux of the issue for changing this year is essentially you're giving up $8 million if one of your teams wins the conference championship, right? You're basically giving up $8 million if you're one of those top 4 ranked conference champions. $8 million guaranteed dollars, right? Conference commissioners just aren't going to be very interested in doing that. They're not going to give away guaranteed money. They're just not going to. And I think, some of the stuff you bring up makes a lot of sense, right? I agree that the conference champions probably shouldn't get a first round bye, right? That should not be guaranteed. I think one of the easiest tweaks in my mind, outside of just throwing the whole thing back into a blender, blending it up and seeing what comes out, right, is just taking that simple thing away, right, where conference champions are still guaranteed entry into the college football playoff, but they're seated wherever they are. And if they're not in the top 12, obviously like Clemson this past year, they would have been bumped up to 12. and seed 1 through 4 exactly what 1 through 4 is in the College Football Playoff Committee's eyes. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it would have helped with some of the seeding issues that we saw this past season. But again, regardless of what format you come out with, there's always going to be issues. There's always going to be gripes. There's always going to be complaints. I think overall it was, a good year for the 12-team playoff. And, there will be changes to come past 2025, but I don't believe there will be a single change this coming season because essentially outside of the SEC and the Big Ten, the other conferences aren't going to have any leverage going forward. So why would they give up leverage a year early? They already know that the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get whatever they want in the next college football playoff negotiations. And they're probably going to get 4 automatic bids, which I find ridiculous. Regardless, they're going to get exactly what they want. All the other conferences know that. So why would they give away power a year early? That's my kind of thoughts on it. I don't think it's going to happen. We'll have the exact same format for the 2025 12-team playoff.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I hope they fight that when the renegotiations are I don't think you're ever going to stop them from completely getting their way, but there has to be a maintenance of some sort of semblance of treating the sport like it's the competitive balance of the sport still being emphasized and putting that before this notion that the SEC and the Big Ten are just superior and should be treated as such in the spirit of competition. That doesn't sit right with me. We don't do that in any other collegiate sport.
Right.
There are avenues. I mean, there are conferences that are better than other conferences. There are the top leagues in the sport, but there is a clear format, like in basketball, on what it takes to get in. At least more clear than the college football playoff was, and there are avenues for the lesser conferences to have access like that. If that was the goal of expanding, at least according to the people that wanted it to expand the playoff, and so
right.
It would be kind of hypocritical to then say, okay, well, now it's just going to be the SEC Big Ten Invitational. Okay, well then you just expanded a bigger version of what you were so critical about the 14 playoff for being, and so it just that would be really disappointing. That's for sure.
It would be. Unfortunately, I think it's for the most part going to go the way of whatever Greg Sankey wants it to end up being, and that's unfortunate. But that's just the way it goes. The Big Ten and the SEC basically are going to have majority of the power when it comes to the new negotiations for the next iteration of the playoff, whatever that looks like. And they're largely probably going to get their way. And honestly, no shot at the group of 5, but I think one of the ways to clean some of this up is to get rid of the group of 5 when it comes to this college football playoff format. Why is the group of 5 why is every group of 5 team competing for one playoff spot? It makes no sense to me. It really doesn't. And to think that a group of 5 team is ever going to rattle off, 3 wins to win the college football playoff national championship, it's just not going to happen. That fairy tale land doesn't exist in the world that we currently operate in college football, in major college football. The talent gap is just too wide. And I don't understand why they don't make their own version of the college football playoff for the group of 5. Like,
I don't think
they should have their own playoff that they could legitimately compete for and win.
They don't want that, and that's the thing. Like it's they like when you if that whenever that comes up, that's always it's a non-starter for at least for a lot of G5 like fans, and I'm pretty sure that's how they're their conference commissioners would feel. It just even though you're right, it's.
I mean, the FCS has their own championship. They play it every year. It's awesome.
Yeah, but they are governed by the NCAA, and it's the NCAA. The FBS is the only division of football or subdivision of football that isn't governed. Its championship isn't run by the NCAA. Like the NCAA organizes the FCS playoff and the Division II playoff and the D3 and then there's the NAIA and that has their own playoff. Like it's the FBS has always been like, okay, we're not going to sanction, we're not going to organize a championship for y'all. Y'all go figure it out. And that's how that's how the history of the national championship in the sport has been so convoluted compared to other sports. And so, like, I don't think the group of five is ever going to. I don't think they're ever going to collectively sign off on a split, unless I don't think they would sign off on it. It would have to be the autonomous four, or whatever you want to call them, going off and making their own playoff, and like they would have to force that split. I don't think the group of five would ever do it because, quite frankly, the group of five conferences and the group of five schools, they need that access, and playing and having the opportunity to play Power Four schools, is a big for them financially. And
I mean, I'm not saying you can't play Power Four.
I think that's the thing to consider.
I mean, I do understand from that avenue the money that they get paid to play these Power Four schools, and I'm not saying you can't do that, but I just don't get why you would want to be battling. I mean, I don't know the number. I don't know how many group of five teams there are, but like jockeying for one spot every single season, I mean, that's crazy to me. But hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
They're never going to win a national championship, so that's just my opinion. I don't think it'll ever happen.
Yeah, you're probably right, but it's the illusion of opportunity, I guess.
You got a shot, but you don't got a shot.
Yeah. But yeah.
All right, guys. The Voice of College Football has a brand new channel and a brand new show to the family called On the Move, where they outline and detail all the transfer portal moves that happen throughout college football. So go check it out over on the new Voice of College Football channel. Live show is called On the Move every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hold on. I was trying to post the link to the channel in there, but I'll do that. Give me 1 second, guys. I don't know where it went. Oh, there we go. There it is, guys. Check out that link right there. That'll take you right to the YouTube channel. And go check out that show for us.
Oh, I was talking. I was I was looking in the chat. John said there'll always be hate, no matter how it expands. You can count on the Power 2 getting at least 50% of the invitations, usually more. Yeah, you're probably right. That's kind of the reality of where things are headed right now.
Yeah, it really is. So we'll see where it all shakes out. We'll see where it all ends up. Jim Phillips, ACC commissioner, had some interesting comments this past week about the future of the conference's biggest game. The ACC Championship game takes place in Charlotte, North Carolina, Carolina Panther Stadium every single year. And he had some interesting comments for what seemed to be him brainstorming during an interview. I don't know really what you call it. It was bizarre, to say the least, with some of his comments that he was floating out there. I joked that I guess the ACC championship game is canceled. We're just going to have a regular season champion and a quote unquote playoff / tournament champion, according to Jim Phillips. But again, this is something that he's going to have to float out there to all the head coaches of the ACC programs. He basically said that he was contemplating having a regular season conference champion. So whoever has the best conference record in the ACC, they would get a bye during conference championship week. And then the teams 2 and 3 in the conference would play. But would play for what is my question. There's no guarantee on any given season that Clemson's going to get the ACC is going to get 2 teams into the college football playoffs. So what are you really doing there? I don't know. We'll talk about it in a minute. His other thought was that take the top 4 teams and they play on the final Saturday of the regular season, aka rivalry weekend. You would play 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, and then the winners of each of those games would play in Charlotte for the ACC championship game the following weekend. Obviously, he's got to float this out to the head coaches to get feedback on it. And his quote was, "The conference championship games are important as long as we make them important." Jordan, your thoughts?
Yeah. It was interesting. I get kind of the rationale behind a potential like change. I know there was, because there was concern, with, this season with SMU that, the fact that, they would have been better off. They could have been better off potentially being better off not having played in the ACC championship game.
Right.
I get the concern, but I don't think I don't think that would be a good idea.
It's just like, it only makes sense if you're guaranteed 2 spots, right?
Yeah.
Because in that format, if you're guaranteed 2 spots, you would assume, my regular season conference champion is going to be in the playoffs. So we're going to give them a bye. And then 2 and 3 are basically duking it out for a playoff berth at that point. Yeah. But in the current format, that's not guaranteed. So what would 2 and 3 be playing for? In some years, they'd be playing for, I guess the conference championship. But then are they really conference champions because the first team got a bye and's not playing I don't know. It's just weird to me, man. It's weird, a really weird format.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not vibing with it. But I don't think there's really anything that you can do about that. Ultimately, the hope is that, thankfully the committee did the right thing this year and didn't punish SMU for losing by 3 points in their conference championship game. Like, right. I hope that continues to be the precedent. The precedent that was set, seems to me like, hey, okay, if you are in a position where you can get 2 teams in, like, that second team that lost that game wouldn't be punished necessarily, especially since they didn't get blown out. Like, I understand, like, hey, if you show up in your conference championship game and you look terrible, I do think that should count against you to a degree. But obviously it's a case by case thing, and what are the teams around them? What did they do? But ultimately, like, I think that if SMU had been left out, I would have understood at least discussing a change to the format, because you don't want to punish your first place team by potentially costing your first place team a spot in a playoff because they lost their conference championship game. But that's not what happened. So I don't understand that from that perspective. And if you're playing during rivalry week, that opens up a whole nother can of worms.
So what are we doing with the rivalry
as far as scheduling? So I don't think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do with rivalry games at that point? You got Georgia Tech, Clemson, South Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky, Florida State, Florida, right? Like, I mean, what are we doing? If any of those teams play, there's going to be a problem, and those teams aren't going to be interested in giving up their rivalry games. So I don't know, man. It just seems like, to me, it would have been better if Jim Phillips would have just came out and said we're exploring options going forward for the ACC Championship game, in the new climate, of the 12-team playoff and college football, right? Like, but it seems like he just came out there and was like brainstorming to the media about possible avenues or courses of action going forward for the ACC and what they might do with their championship game. It just seems weird. It comes off as you don't know what you're doing. It comes off as you're kind of a joke, like you're kind of laughable.
Yeah, nobody else is doing that. No,
never hear Greg Sankey come out and say anything like that. If he came out and made it like it would be an announcement, like, "Hey, this is what the SEC is going to do going forward when it comes to our conference championship game." It wouldn't be like, "Hey, well, I was thinking we might do this, and then I had another thought that we're gonna maybe look at this," and like, man, what are you doing? Like, the ACC already gets enough hate for the weak conference that it quote unquote is, and this, that, and the other. And when you got a leader like that goes out there and just says stuff like that, it just makes it so much worse, man. Like, I'm so sick of seeing stuff like this happen in the ACC. It's whatever. It is.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this isn't anything new. For those of you that have, that know the history of the ACC and its leadership, they have been fighting a 60+ year long PR battle. So like it really is like at least in the sport of football, and now they're fighting it in basketball too, which shows you kind of the direction things are heading. So like it's that's just the reality of this conference right now, and a part of the reason why Clemson and Florida State are suing to get out. So it is what it is.
It is. It is what it is, man. All right, guys, if you don't know, you should know. Mark Rogers, yes, that is Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, has released his very first book. He's published it. It's called Disputed National Champions, College Football's Historic 1990s Reset, deep dive into the chaotic world of college football championships and the decisions in the 1990s. This pivotal decade reshaped the sport in unprecedented ways, leaving fans and experts alike questioning the system and the legitimacy of those crowned champions. So if that sounds like something that you would enjoy or be interested in, I encourage you guys to pop over to Amazon. You see it right here on the screen. You can get it for $9.99. If you have a Kindle, you can get it on the Kindle app for 99 cents. Make sure you guys rate and review it, and that would be greatly appreciated.
Yep, absolutely. Y'all go check it out. Helps the show, helps the channel, helps the Voice of College Football brand, and you get to learn a little bit too. So,
absolutely. Way too early 2025 predictions, Jordan. We're going to get into it right now. As we talked about in the top of the show, curtain call on the 2024 season. Ohio State is your national champions for 2024. So now it's time to fully embrace the offseason and everything that comes with it. And all around college football, people love to do early predictions on the upcoming season. And we're going to do these even before we talk about spring practice or, that stuff even really gets rolling. So way too early 2025 predictions. We're going to talk about a lot of different things in this segment. Scrolling across the bottom, we're going to start, Jordan, with Cade Klubnik's Heisman odds. He's sitting at plus 1,200, third best odds. He's tied with Drew Aller, Nico, I'm not even going to try to say his last name, from Tennessee, and Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State, freshman wide receiver. They are right under Garrett Nussmeier and Arch Manning, who are tied as co-favorites at plus 850. So thoughts on Cade Klubnik's Heisman odds heading into 2025 season?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since Clemson has had a legitimate preseason, contender for the Heisman at quarterback. It's a very refreshing to see, first and foremost, and it's a reflection of what Cade was able to do this year, and a reflection of what promise this offense showed, and with everything that's coming back, odds makers seem to think, hey, that he should be in that conversation, and I can't say I disagree. So it was good to see that. Ultimately these are just odds, and obviously you can go back and probably look at last season's preseason odds and see some names that, in retrospect, you're like, okay, what were they doing there? So, these things, it's always hard with these preseason awards. But hey, look, I think Cade is as good a bet as anybody. Just with the potential he has on offense, the weapons, the continuity that he'll have at coordinator and at receiver and on the offensive line. I mean, that's the recipe for a really strong statistical year. And when you're a quarterback, your strong statistical seasons are going to put you in that conversation because it is Heisman. The Heisman has always been skewed towards the quarterback position. So think it's a worthy ranking. I know some of the other names around him are interesting. Arch Manning has not, started a full season at quarterback before, and he's in the Heisman odds. But hey, he's uber talented, and he's at Texas and in a Steve Sarkisian offense, so he's going to be in that conversation.
And his last name is Manning.
So yeah, his last name is Manning. That's another big part of that equation. And then, but I do, Garrett Nussmeier is obviously one of the top returning quarterbacks, had a strong statistical year this past year. And, LSU cleaned up in the transfer portal. So they're going to be a potential, and obviously you're open with them this year, so that'll be fun. But they're going to be in that conversation as well. So along with Drew Aller, who was just coming off a playoff appearance and all of that. So, I think Cade is going to be one of those, early front runners, and we'll see whether or not he can, take that step and deliver on that promise. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be super interesting. It speaks to the kind of season that Cade Klubnik had in 2024, right? The fact that he is in the conversation and tied for third with some very good players in Drew Aller, Nico, and Jeremiah Smith. Obviously, Garrett Nussmeier, LSU quarterback, going to be going head-to-head with Cade Klubnik. First game of the season. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I think plus 1,200 odds, being the third best odds behind those two guys, pretty good. So, Jordan, I don't think we'll predict whether he'll win the Heisman, but let's go. Will he end up in New York? Early, way too early, 2025 Heisman prediction. Will Cade Klubnik end up in New York?
In this way too early prediction that y'all better not hold it against me or anything if it ends up wrong, 9 months, 10 months from now, I'll say yes, because I do think there aren't, as it stands right now, I don't think there are a lot of quarterbacks with his level of production coming back. And
Yeah.
I think when you are a quarterback, that award is going to be skewed in your favor a lot of the time. And with like I said, with everything he has coming back offensively, I think he'll definitely be in that conversation. So I'll say yes.
I'm with you, Jordan.
This far out.
I'm with you. Way too early. 2025 prediction. Absolutely. Cade Klubnik ultimately ends up in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Of course, we know he will not win it because he is a Clemson quarterback. Just ask Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Very
true.
All right, next thing we're going to talk about Clemson's national championship odds as it sits right now today are at plus 1,800. Good for 9th overall, right behind Tennessee and right in front of LSU, who is 10th on the list. So, Jordan, what do you think about those national championship odds for our Tigers heading into this next season?
I mean, it sounds about right. I think Clemson is. I'll say this: we've talked about what we think about so far, what we think about this team in 2025, and we think they have the opportunity to be, pretty damn good. Better, considerably better than this past year, even with a playoff appearance. And so, like, I think they're going to be right in that conversation to potentially be a top 4 seed and maybe make a run at it. So I like their odds. You could probably get some pretty good value with where they're sitting. So I think that makes a lot of sense. As South Carolina chokes a game against Florida and Clemson wins, man, what a night! This is a good night.
What a great night, man! You know what I'm saying? Clemson gets the dub against Syracuse. South Carolina, in true South Carolina fashion, loses. So it's shaping up. There's snow on the ground outside, Jordan. We're doing way too early 2025 predictions. I mean, how could the show go any better?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. I didn't even get to hate watch that whole game because they were playing at the same time. But I watched the end. Florida got a game-winning layup, so sucks to suck. Anyway, this is not a basketball show. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, 9th seems about right. You look at the list of teams that are kind of on there. I think Ohio State is actually the favorite to win the national title yet again in 2025, followed by Texas, Oregon, Georgia, Penn State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Tennessee, then our Clemson Tigers. So, and then LSU right behind them. We'll get to that game in a minute. But it seems right. It seems we're in the mix, which is something that you have not been able to say entering any season the past 4 years. So it's good to be back in the mix of being a legitimate contender when it comes to national championship discussions. Whether Clemson makes it or not, we're going to find out in a moment, Jordan. Will the Clemson Tigers play for the 2025 College Football National Championship? Way too early prediction.
Way too early predictions. Will they play for the national championship? I'm going to say no. But I think they can. I would not. It's not an easy no. I think this team has the players capable, especially with what I saw this year. I didn't think there was a truly there wasn't really a team that truly separated from the rest of the pack. Ohio State played their best football at the end of the year. That's for sure.
Yeah, they got hot.
I didn't think they were just like miles better than everybody else. And even when it seemed like they were going to run away with Notre Dame, they didn't. They played really good football. They're going to lose a lot of that team. I don't see anybody else in the sport that is, that has, this is a no-brainer. They're going to be, they're going to be the team to beat next year. There just doesn't seem to be that. Texas is bringing back a lot of talent. offensively. Well, they're bringing back a lot of good players, but they're starting a new quarterback. Obviously, that can change. Penn State, Oregon, like all of these teams have major questions, and so I think Clemson is right could be right there with any of those teams potentially, especially if you get what you hope you get out of the defense that you didn't get this past season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the key right there, right, Jordan, is what is this defense going to look like in 2025 for the Clemson Tigers? Obviously, we've talked in length about Tom Allen and how excited we are to have him on as our new defensive coordinator and for him to really be able to turn around the defense from a production standpoint from what was produced in 2024 on the field. But I'm going to go with no, Clemson will not play for the national championship in 2025. But again, like you, I think there is a legitimate possibility that if things work out, and we obviously you need some luck, and by luck I mean you need health, right? Because people just like the depth in college football isn't what it used to be because of because of NIL and the transfer portal, right? Everybody every single year's 2 and 3 deeps get rated. And Clemson's not immune to that at all, which is why you see teams like Georgia this past year. That was a very good team, but when they have injuries and things happen, they don't quite have the depth that they used to have, right? Same with Alabama and all the other top teams. You mentioned Ohio State this past season. Obviously, that Michigan loss, I think, was very pivotal in their run in the college football playoff. I think it was kind of a wake-up call to those guys. And really propelled them through the rest of their season into the college football playoff and ultimately winning a national championship. But to your point, I don't think they were head and shoulders above the rest of college football. Yeah, it may have seemed that way towards the end, how they started playing. But you mentioned Notre Dame didn't go away in that game. They didn't quit. They kept battling back and essentially, couldn't produce very much on offense, which was ultimately their downfall. That and trying to play man against that wide receiver core of Ohio State, which we all knew probably wasn't going to work out too well, and we were correct. But, yeah, I think Clemson will have a legitimate shot to make a deep playoff run. But I'm not ready to say that they will play for the College Football National Championship in 2025. So I'm going to go no there, just like you. Next point of topic is – after finishing the season 10-4 this past year, we saw the improvement in the offense. The defense kind of declined as the season went, didn't produce as well as we would have liked. But the over-under win total for the Tigers is set at 9.5, with the over at plus 126 and the under at minus 162. So 9.5, the over-under win total. What are your thoughts on that for the 2025 version of the Clemson Tigers?
You're getting plus money for the over as it stands right now. I like those odds. I do think with Clemson's schedule, it does shape up to potentially be kind of tricky. Some of the games that you have, and we'll see when the schedule is released what the order looks like. Obviously, you're opening with LSU, closing with South Carolina. Yeah. But everything in between that is very much up in the air as far as what the scheduling and your bye weeks are going to look like. So that's one thing that I'm really interested to see. But I do think this team should be the team to beat. Should be the clear favorite in the ACC. I think with everything they bring back, Miami had a really strong year this past year, but they're replacing a Heisman finalist at quarterback. And as good as Carson Beck has been at times, that's not a sure thing. They have a lot of questions on defense. They have they are basically overhauling their secondary in the transfer portal. They have a couple of really good receivers that they have to replace, and Isaiah Horton and Xavier Restrepo. Horton went to the transfer portal, and obviously Restrepo is going to the NFL. And I don't think SMU obviously is returning a good team, but hey, Clemson won the ACC. I think they bring back a lot. Like I said, they bring back a lot of talent. I think they should be the clear favorite. I think 10 regular season wins at least is very much on the table for this team, and if not 11, 12. So I think that's, for me as it stands right now, I think it's a good opportunity to bet the over, because I think those odds might change a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, look, essentially, Clemson is returning 8 starters on offense and 8 starters on defense. We only lost 3 off of the D, 3 off of the offense and defense, 3 per side, right? So I think the talent, the experience that you're bringing back, there's something to be said about that. And with the improvement on the offensive side of the ball and what we anticipate Tom Allen being able to do with the talent that's currently on Clemson's defensive roster, I see your ACC schedule going very well for the Tigers this next year. So you went 7-1 in the conference this past season. I don't see you doing any worse in the conference in 2025. Frankly, I could see Clemson going undefeated in the conference if the schedule shakes out in a good way, and if again things come together and you barring injury to any sort of major key players for the Tigers, I could definitely see them going undefeated in the conference in 2025. So I like the over. I think a 10-win season should be the bare minimum for this Clemson team heading into 2025. So I would definitely, if you're a betting person in college football and that's something that you like to do, I would definitely get on those early odds for the over and get that plus money for that the over the 9.5. So
Absolutely.
All right. Shifting gears. Last thing we're going to give a prediction on in our way too early 2025 prediction. Clemson versus LSU. Kick off the season with another huge game. LSU, the only difference is this season, it's not a neutral site game. Thank the Lord. It's happening. It's a home and home series. LSU's coming to Death Valley, the real Death Valley. I don't care what LSU has to say about it. I know it makes you mad. I don't care. It makes you mad. But Clemson opens up as a 2.5-point favorite, according to FanDuel, and a 1.5-point favorite, according to DraftKings. So 2 different lines there. You can pick which one you want. But they're a favorite opening up against LSU at home. Now, some things to think about when you're giving a prediction, a way too early prediction on this game. We gotta pick and choose what we're gonna talk about here, right? So Clemson, LSU 5 straight opener losses, dating all the way back to 2020. Lost to Mississippi State, UCLA, lost to Florida State twice. That's embarrassing. And USC just this past year. They did lose to Florida State when Florida State was much better than they were this past season. So yeah. I will give you that, LSU fans. Calm down. And another interesting point is Clemson, like we talked about before, 9th on the national championship odds, and LSU right below them at 10th. So there is that going into the game as well. Brian Kelly, some LSU fans are going to be looking for him to kind of start turning the corner at LSU and start producing at a bit higher of a level. So we'll go with the 1.5 DraftKings. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's one arguably. I mean, it's going to be one of the marquee games of Week 1. I mean, that's what's exciting. I mean, these are 2 of the biggest brands in college football, and I think you could probably Ohio State and Texas, I think, play Week 1. I think that's probably going to get the game day, the college game day, because that's just how it's going to go. But I think Clemson LSU is going to be one of the top games of a really loaded slate in Week 1. You also got Alabama, Florida State, which that might who knows? two big brands, Alabama and Florida State playing. Florida State wasn't good this past year, and I can't think of the other ones, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be pivotal, I think, for both teams. They're both returning senior quarterbacks that are, potential Heisman candidates. Both teams are trying to, get back to playing good defense. So that's going to be interesting. LSU obviously hit the transfer portal really hard for defense and at the wide receiver position, interestingly enough. And so, it's going to be a battle of, the continuity that Clemson has as far as their roster retention versus the kind of the overhaul that LSU made with a lot of their players, a lot of their starters on offense and defense. And so it's going to be interesting. And like you said, obviously the whole Death Valley conversation is going to be, we're going to be tired of it by the time that game rolls around. So who's the real Death Valley? It was annoying leading up to the national championship game back in 2019.
Yes,
and so like, I know it's going to be even worse now that this is the first time either of these teams have played in the other's home stadium, and it's going to happen again next year. So like I'm super excited for it. And I think Clemson should be the favorite. I think the line is probably about right as it sits right now. If the game was played today, based on what I know about both teams, I would pick Clemson to win the football game. So with these way too early predictions, I'm gonna stick with that. I think Clemson wins the opener. But maybe I feel different when we do our official season predictions closer.
Yeah, look, I absolutely think Clemson wins this game. One, it's at home in Death Valley. Two, the amount of talent that Clemson's returning. We just talked about it when we talked about the over-under win total for the season. LSU has lost their past 5 openers, but Clemson's lost their last 2. So
and 3 of the last 4.
And 3 of the last 4. So you could point to that in a negative light for Clemson as well. But I just think Clemson, will ultimately get the job done against LSU. I think we're a better team. And with the return of Cade Klubnik, I know they got Garrett Nussmeier, and he's a really good quarterback. But I trust Clemson more in this game. And it's a home game. Death Valley is going to be going absolutely insane for this game. So I'll take I'll take Clemson to win the game as of right now. Now, maybe we get close to the season and we got a bunch of injuries, or things ain't looking too good, or what we're hearing out of fall camp. We'll make our real predictions then. But as far as the way too early, I'm going to take the Tigers, the Clemson Tigers, that is, over the LSU Tigers in the season opener. Now, quick fire before we move on, Jordan. We're going to go and outline a couple of these other big week 1 games around college football. It's going to be a great week 1 in college football.
Oh, yeah, man.
So first we'll hit Ohio State versus Texas. Ohio State opened up as a 4.5-point favorite. Who you got?
Oh, yeah. This far out, it's tough, man.
It's tough.
Both teams, and it's because both teams are starting new quarterbacks. Arch Manning for Texas and probably Julian Sayin for Ohio State.
Yeah.
So it's it makes it so much harder to project when you do that. Texas is. I'm interested to see kind of how they address their running back situation, because Jadon Blue declared for the NFL draft. Obviously, he tore Clemson up in the playoff game.
Yeah,
he chose to declare early. They do get C.J. Baxter back. He was hurt pretty much the entire season, and he was probably their RB1. So that'll be interesting. Kind of how they have some pieces to replace on the offensive line. Kelvin Banks, and it was obviously going to be a first rounder. Their right tackle declared as well, I think. Defensively, they're still going to have a lot of dogs. But they do have to replace some pieces in the secondary. So I think
receivers as well. off that.
Yeah.
Golden
Matthew
left.
Golden and I did Isaiah Bond declare? I think he did.
Yeah, Isaiah Bond declared as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So
he's gone.
That's tough. So
Yeah.
I think with everything that I think Texas probably has a little bit more questions heading into this game. So this far out, I'll go with Ohio State, and just because, and also Ohio State is just they've spent the money,
right?
And they just coming off a national championship, it's hard to bet against them right now.
It is. I'll go Texas. Actually, I'll take the 4.5 points and go Texas. Just because I think Arch Manning's probably going to be the best quarterback in the game. So
we've seen more of him.
He doesn't have a lot of playing experience, but he does have playing experience at Texas. So, and what
we've
you've
seen more of him than saying, that's for sure.
Right, and what you've seen of him has been really good. He's athletic. So Ohio State coming off of that, that big national championship, are they going to be as hungry in game one? Probably. They're probably going to have a brand new, roster because they're going to go out and pay a bunch of money in the transfer portal to get a bunch of good players. But I'll take 4.5. I'll take Texas. All right, next big game, Alabama, Florida State. Alabama is an 8.5 point favorite.
Yeah, not going to spend too much time Alabama. I'm surprised the line is that short, but Florida State, they're kind of banking on Florida State not being nearly as terrible as they were. Yeah,
it's January, and Florida State has done some good in the transfer portal, like they do every single year. We'll see how the 2025 version works out for them, but yeah, I'm Alabama all day on this. I don't think it's very hard to pick that game. No. Florida State's going to get rolled. Auburn, Baylor. Auburn is a 1.5 point favorite.
Yeah, that's going to be. I don't trust Hugh Freeze. That's the thing. Like it's like Auburn should win that game.
Yeah.
I do think they have some talented pieces, and they probably should have won more games than they did last year. But
do they have their quarterback figured out?
They brought in 1 million of them.
Yeah,
and I don't know if any of them are going to be any good.
Right.
So it's like,
is it going to work out? Yeah, is it even going to be settled by game one? Right. So I don't know.
Good question. So I'll lean Auburn, but I don't feel good. I'm still
going to go Auburn, but yeah, to your point, I don't trust Hugh Freeze at all. But Auburn 1.5 point favorite. I'll take them. Georgia Tech at Colorado. This could be a cool game to watch. Georgia Tech opens up at a 4.5 point favorite. No Shedeur Sanders. Deion is presumably going to be there. No Travis Hunter. No Shiloh. Going to be a completely different roster, as it is every single year in Colorado. So nothing new there. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Georgia Tech. I think they have the better roster. They did better in the portal. But Colorado's interesting because they are bringing in Julian Lewis, and that that could, if he comes out and plays well out the gate. I mean, it's hard to ask a true freshman to do that, but that could be interesting. But I'll go with Georgia Tech because I just think they're a little bit more. They've built a little bit more continuity in their roster, and I don't. Deion, with how he goes about doing things, it feels like that program is going to be a year-to-year thing. Like they could have a strong year like this year, and then they could also fall back down. And it just depends on whether or not their portal takes hit and all that. So
kind of feels like Florida State, right?
Yeah.
Kind of similar with those two. So yeah, Georgia Tech's just more consistent, and they've done some really good things in the portal. And they're trending in the right direction. They're getting better each and every year. So I'll take them over Colorado easy. Tennessee versus Syracuse in Atlanta. Tennessee opens up as a 13.5 point favorite.
Yeah. I'm going Tennessee. No Kyle McCord. Syracuse was fun last year, but I think there's going to be a return to
Yeah, there's
reality a
going to
little
be
bit.
regression in 2025 for Syracuse
Yeah,
for sure.
and with tennis, Nico being in his third season, I think he's going to take I think he's going to take a step forward. You know, I do have questions about their receivers and kind of the Josh Heupel offense when they can't protect is pretty awful. You know, it's pretty tough to watch at times, and receivers that they can't catch. So if they address that, then you know they could be a lot better this year.
Yeah.
But, you know, they got to put the pieces around Nico. But I think they have the defense is going to be able to, you know, or especially early on, I think the defense will be able to carry them a bit. So,
Yeah, Tennessee for sure on that one.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Notre Dame at Miami. That's a cool game. Notre Dame opens up as a 2.5-point favorite over the Miami Hurricanes. Carson Beck led Miami.
Yeah, that's going to be
That still
weird.
sounds weird.
It is. You know what? I'm going to go with Miami. Actually,
Hey.
I'm going to take Miami. Notre Dame is interesting because they're actually going to bring a lot of pieces back, but you know, they're probably going to be starting the true freshman that they're bringing in, or the true freshman that they're bringing in this year, and CJ Carr.
Yeah,
I would bet would be the starter next year. Obviously, we don't know. And you know, Carson Beck, he does have experience. They do have a really good offensive line, and I think that'll be enough to.
He's going to have weapons.
Yeah.
They're going to have weapons for him. So, yeah, I think Miami will get the job done there as well. South Carolina versus Virginia Tech to wrap it up. South Carolina opens up as a 9.5-point favorite.
Man, South Carolina is a team that, you know, bias aside, obviously, they are interesting because they are losing so much off that defense, but because Lenore Sellers, you know, the promise that he showed this year, like I have a lot of questions, but he made a lot of things work for them, especially late in the year. Even when they really didn't have much. Like they brought in a ton of receivers in their recruiting class. I don't know if any of them are going to be any good out of the gate, but they brought in some additional bodies there. You know, Nick Harbor's coming back. He actually led the team in receiving yards with like 370 yards. So that tells you kind of what their passing game was this year. But they lose so much off the defense. Like that's the thing that is. I don't want to say scares because like I don't want South Carolina to be good. But like if I was a South Carolina fan, that would be the thing that would, you know, concern me is defensively, are they going to be anywhere near what they were this year? You know, you do bring back Dylan Stewart, but you're losing both, you know, like three, 4 players off your 2 deep at defensive tackle. You lose Kyle Kennard, your leading sack leader. You're losing basically your entire linebacker group. You're losing 2 corners. Like it's. I'm sorry, not 2 corners. You lose one of your safeties and one of your corners, and O'Donnell Fortune and Nick Emmanwori. So like they have a lot to replace up front. And you know, and a couple of pieces in the secondary that were really, really good for them. So like Virginia Tech, but the thing with Virginia Tech is I don't know what to think of them either. So it's and we've seen South Carolina in these openers kind of look really pedestrian. I'm going to take South Carolina to win because Lenore Sellers is a game breaker, and I don't think Virginia Tech has a guy like that. But like that could end up being a game that is really, really competitive just because they don't seem to come out with a lot of fire. It was kind of like how they played against Old Dominion this past year.
Right. Well, I was about to say, you look at that Old Dominion game, they came very close to losing that game.
Yeah. I don't know. That could be interesting. I really don't know what to think about South Carolina this year because how much of what that was they were a really old team. Like that's what people don't realize is they had a ton. They had a first year starting quarterback, but the rest of that team was extremely experienced. They had to replace pieces off the offensive line too. Like they lost. They're losing a lot. So it's like
They
I
are losing
don't
a
know
lot,
how much
and
of that was experience and how much of that is
they
something
weren't
that
particularly great at wide receiver this past year. They brought in a bunch of dudes this season. Do any of those pan out? Are Lenore Sellers' weapons going to be any better than they were a year ago? Because if not, I don't think they're going to be able to replicate the same success they had in 2024 and 2025.
And that's not even mentioning running back. You lose Rocket Sanders, and I don't look at their running back room right now and say like, oh, there's a guy that scares me. Like I think they have a couple of nice guys, like players, but like they don't have Rocket Sanders' production is not going to be replaced. I don't think. So it's Lenore's is probably going to have to carry a little bit more of the load in the running game than he already did.
A lot of question marks for both of those teams. So really hard to kind of predict this game in January. If I'm doing the smart bet, I'll probably pick South Carolina just because they're more talented than Virginia Tech. But I could see South Carolina dropping a game like this in an opener. So, but I'll go with South Carolina.
Yeah. Matt B just said in the chat, DeMonte Capehart is officially back.
Is it official?
Maybe you made an announcement. It's always fun when we get news
during the live show. Yeah,
during the live show. Because
while you're looking that up, I'm gonna go ahead and give a shout out to our official voice of college football X page.
Yeah, literally 1 minute ago. Yeah, he's back.
Check it out. You see it right here on the screen. The Voice of College Football Network official X page. The best discussion, debate, and analysis with no off season. So make sure you guys are going to check that out. Give it a follow. Tons of videos, tons of college football content over there. And while you're over on X, go give Jordan a follow as well. As soon as I get that off the screen, you will be able to see his Twitter handle right there.
Yep.
And shout out to DeMonte Capehart.
Yes, shout out to DeMonte Capehart. Absolutely. And I'm very on top of social media, especially on Twitter. So like, I like to retweet when the players make announcements and stuff. So that's another thing. But yeah, DeMonte Capehart officially announces that he will be back for the 2025 season. We were just talking about him at the beginning of the show. So there you go, man.
It was all but official, and now it's official. So another huge piece, another huge cog in the wheel, if you will, of the 2025 Clemson Tigers. It's been a really good offseason so far. I don't think any Clemson fan out there can complain about the offseason that Clemson has had to this point. So let's hope we can keep that momentum right through spring practice into fall camp and have an amazing 2025 Clemson season.
Yep, absolutely. Just exciting news, man. This is a massive, return. For this defensive front, the defense in general. He's probably collecting Social Security at this point with how long he's been here. But hopefully he gets a
working on his doctorate degree or something by now.
Yeah, and it's I'm happy for him because I want him to get that fully healthy year that's been kind of elusive with him.
Because we talked about it before. Prior to the ankle injury this season, he was having a really good year. Eating up blocks, wreaking havoc in the middle of that defensive line, and then the ankle injury happened, and unfortunately he never quite recovered from that. He was never really the same. I don't think he was ever fully healthy at any point in time. After that ankle injury. But that's kind of how those high ankle sprains go. I mean, they last forever.
Yep, absolutely. And so he gets a fully healthy off season, hopefully, knock on wood, and an opportunity to have a strong final campaign and make himself some money because talent wise, I think he has first round level talent. And I hope the NFL scouts see that, this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dylan says, yeah, Capehart is Tyler Davis. Yeah, he has followed a similar career path. Tyler obviously started a little, earlier in his career and was just here. He played a lot of football, but he did have the injuries, bug as well. But yeah, Cape is, he kind of is that similar. But I think DeMonte is, from a NFL traits standpoint, I think his ceiling is even higher than what Tyler Davis's was, and that's what's exciting, is that you can put that final year together, being healthy. I think he has money.
I mean, that just adds to that defensive tackle group. I mean, that's going to be a heck of a group again this coming season. Hopefully, we get the production out of them this year that we expected a season ago.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to end the show tonight with a top 5 players leaving and a top 5 players returning to our Clemson Tigers, leading it off with the top 5 players leaving Clemson at the end of 2024, heading into 2025. My number 1 guy on the list, Jordan, is R.J. Mickens. Huge loss. We've talked about it on the show numerous times about his overall consistency of play, the kind of player coach he was on the back end of that defense, ensuring everybody was lined up properly, and just the consistency that he performed with each and every game this past season. He leaves a huge hole in that safety room that is going to be difficult to fill this coming offseason. But that's why we got a new defensive coordinator. It's going to be his job to kind of figure out what we have there and who is best to fill those shoes of R.J. Mickens. But huge loss for the Tigers. But again, hope he has a great NFL career. He certainly gave Clemson all he could.
Yeah, absolutely. My number 1 is going to be Phil Maffa. I think because there's a lot of question marks about the running back position heading into this year, and you don't really know what you have. You got to see a little bit of Jay Haynes, and obviously tore his ACL in the ACC Championship game, and you didn't have him. And so now you're kind of in a position where you got to figure out what you have there. Obviously, incoming freshmen, Gideon Davidson has a lot of hype. He's going. I expect him to be in the mix, but at the end of the day, you don't have really any proven commodity in the running back room. Adam Randall making the transition, like there's bodies and there's some guys with some ability, but we have not seen much of it, and that's one thing that we're going to be closely watching during the spring. So Phil Maffa is my number 1. Just tough to replace a guy that, when healthy, was guaranteed 3 or 4 yards basically, could fall forward, and the balance and patience as a runner are things that you can't teach. And as a senior leader of that offense, and I hated that his season ended the way it did. Because he was, especially early in the year, he was driving a lot of that offense. Kay Klubnik was putting up the numbers, but it was also because teams were worried about that run game. So that's I think we're going to miss him. Similar to kind of how you missed. I felt like you missed Will Shipley this year because you didn't have another guy, and so he's going to be my number 1. But it was kind of tough to pick. Because you mentioned R.J. Mickens, that he's a guy that was up there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jacob, appreciate you stopping by. Have a good one, man. All right, my number 2 was a guy that you just mentioned, Phil Maffa. Obviously, for all the reasons that you stated, it's a huge hole in the running back room, and frankly, we don't know what's going to be. We don't know what's behind him. There's not a lot of proven guys behind him. You talk about Jay Haynes. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field. And even when he was healthy this season, he didn't get a lot of he didn't get a lot of burn at the position. It was kind of film off or bust this year, and ultimately that ended up being one of the reasons that Clemson had some trouble towards the end of the season with consistently moving the ball, was because the injuries to Phil Maffa. So what do you have behind him? Everybody thinks Gideon Davison's going to walk right in and become the day one starter, and I really hope that happens. That's a lot as a freshman. That's a whole lot as a freshman, but he definitely has the talent in order to do something like that. You think about Adam Randall getting some burn over there in the spring. We'll see how that works out, but definitely a position of question. So Phil Maffa's number 2 on my list.
Yep. My number 2 is going to be RJ Mickens. So we just kind of had ours flip-flopped. All the reasons you mentioned, tough to replace a level like that level of play at safety. Just really experienced, football player, multi-year starter, meant a lot to the back end of that defense. Going to be tough to replace.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 3 on my list is Barrett Carter, linebacker. Obviously, we talked about last week's show about how the linebackers obviously didn't live up to their billing, their preseason billing, what we thought they would be in 2024. But Barrett Carter's still a huge loss to this Clemson Tigers defense. He's big. He's athletic. He's a guy that can get in there and stop the run. He's a guy that can cover when he's in the right position, right? He's shown the ability to do it at times, and ultimately hope that he has a great NFL career as well. He is my number 3. You got, you talk about the room. You got Wade Woodaz, Sammy Brown that came on really well towards the end of the season, freshman, and then some question marks after them. So we'll see how that room develops in the spring as well. So big hole there for Barrett Carter, multi-year starter.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder. Kind of, he's going to be my number 3 as well. And it kind of makes you wonder what it would have been nice if you could have got him for another year, and under a different defensive coordinator, different position coach, all that. But yeah,
he might have been able to if he would have had any eligibility.
Yeah,
it could have been a possibility.
But yeah, that is what it is when you're a guy that came in as good as he was. He played all 4 years.
All 4 years,
Never redshirted. So that's the way it is a lot of the time. So, his lead and just he was a leader. He was one of the heart, and he was a captain, one of the hearts and souls of the team. So they're just going to be tough to replace it, and represented Clemson as well as anybody. I'm definitely going to miss seeing him out there. So Barrett Carter is my number 3.
One of my favorite players to see interviewed, right? Like just through and through, a Clemson ambassador. Just a guy that articulates himself very well. Just gives very thoughtful answers when talking to the media. Just a fun guy to just hear interviewed and hear him talk about his journey to Clemson, his journey while he was at Clemson, a behind the scenes look at the coaches and stuff. It's a stand-up guy. So sad to see him go, but thankful that we got 4 years of a really great Barrett Carter. And, he'll be a Tiger for forever. Number 4 on my list was Jake Brenningstool, tight end. Obviously, we have a very talented tight end room. The emergence of Olsen Pat Henry this past season was, I think, somewhat surprising in the way that he asserted himself as that number 2 guy, really with his ability to block, which was not a strong suit coming out of high school for him.
No.
But I think our tight end room's in really good hands, but you still got a hole there with a guy the size of Jake Brenningstool, 6'6", massive reach, mismatch nightmare for linebackers and nickel backers and guys that were trying to cover him. He was a really difficult body type to deal with in the middle of the field. Underutilized quite a bit during his career at Clemson, but still set records, and it's going to be missed off this Clemson Tiger team for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you don't get many guys with his length and athleticism and pass catching ability at the tight end position. And he's a lot of fun to watch. One of the best to come through Clemson for sure. So it's definitely going to be greatly missed. But I do like what you're bringing back in that room and the talent and potential there. You already mentioned Olsen, Pat Henry, obviously Christian Bentaker. We didn't have to burn his red shirt. A guy that I think is going to leave as one of the best when it's all said and done. I think you got some options there. And Josh Sapp returning, like you've got some pieces to work with.
Yep. All right, I'll move on to my number 5, and that is Peyton Page, defensive tackle, a guy that played a lot of snaps as a Clemson Tiger. He was kind of, just a guy there for a long time. Had a really good season this past season. With getting a guy like DeMonte Capehart back, it definitely lessens the blow of a Peyton Page leaving. But just his athleticism from the defensive tackle position, I think, is what really made Peyton Page stand out. His ability to get to the passer, just big plays that he made that pop into my head from his career here at Clemson, and certainly a big loss to that defensive tackle group. But again, another position group that is in really good hands with the depth that is there. You think about a Peter Woods, DeMonte Capehart, Stephon Green, Heaven Brown, Shule, all those guys that are still there, but still going to miss a veteran guy like Peyton Page in the room.
Yeah, and one of the senior leaders, 4-year player. He was certainly, and one of the, he brought a lot of energy to that room. I mean, he's really, really funny guy to listen to, and just he was definitely one of the jokesters on the team, and so he was just a bright, personality to have on that team, and obviously coupled with his talent, he was a lot of fun to watch. Excited to see where he ends up at the next level. For my number 5, I'm going to go Marcus Tate. 4-year starter at guard. It's just a guy that's hard to replace, and that's one of the things that's going to be addressed during this spring is that battle at left guard. See who ultimately steps up there. It's tough to replace. I mean, it's funny. You just looking back at how far he came. Marcus did. His first start was in that 2021 season opener against Georgia when you had all those injuries, and he was thrown to the wolves, man. But he was a very, very solid football player. Like I said, 4-year starter. He dealt with injuries, played through injuries at different points in his career. Just happy for him that he's going to get a chance to play at the next level because, the injuries were a problem for him at times. And it's tough to replace that, as many snaps and starts as he had. That's tough to replace, even though I do think you have some options there.
Yeah, and that's really the thing when you think about a guy like Marcus Tate is the experience that you're replacing. Yeah, does Clemson have uber talented offensive linemen behind him that are probably going to step in and do a really good job? You think about Harris Sewell, you think about
Colin Sadler,
and
the younger guys, Mason Wade, and
right.
You've got some options for sure.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys, but really the thing that you will be missing regardless of who steps into that spot is that experience that a Marcus Tate brought to the game. Just seeing so many defensive fronts, seeing so many snaps, so many reps at protection and things like that. There's nuances to the game that can only be taught by experience. And when you lose a guy with as many starts as him, there's always going to be a hole. But luckily for the Tigers, there's a lot of young guys there waiting to fill that role as best they can. But yeah, certainly a hole there. Would have brought back all 5 starting offensive linemen had Marcus Tate had any eligibility. But again, he's a guy that was just flat out of eligibility. There was no way for him to come back.
Yep. When you have those guys that are too good to keep off the field as a freshman, that tends to be how it goes.
Yeah, you only get 4 years, so he got his 4 and played extremely well. All right, shifting gears right over to the top 5 players returning for our Clemson Tigers. Jordan, I'll let you go ahead and take the reins on this one first. Who's your number 1 top 5 player or top player returning to the Clemson Tigers for the 2025 season?
Yeah, this was obviously more difficult to do than the top 5 leaving. But my number 1 player returning, obviously that didn't know if you were going to the way I did it was I picked players that we knew were that had the opportunity to leave.
Right.
And I don't mean like transfer and all that. I mean like they could have gone to the NFL. So my number 1 is going to be Cade. I think that's the quarterback, most important player, going one of the front runners. Early preseason for the Heisman. Obviously, was a lot of the reason why you won 10 games and made the playoff and won the ACC. I think that's a pretty no-brainer first choice.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's the guy that really has the biggest effect on the field, on the team. I mean, quarterback is the most important position on any football team. So Cade Klubnik makes a lot of sense there. Definitely had a legitimate shot to go to the NFL this past season. This is not particularly a heavy quarterback class. He would have definitely been drafted. Where he would have been drafted, I don't know. What his NFL grade was, again, I don't know. But I'm certainly happy that the 110 Society and the donors at Clemson were able to get him back for his senior season and have another go round, because the numbers that he put up in 2024 were really good. Almost 500 yards rushing, I think 7 touchdowns on the ground, 36 touchdowns, passing touchdowns, 3,600 yards through the air. So, I mean, he had a really, really good season and just transformed into a completely different quarterback over the course of a season. And expect him to take another step forward. He was my number 1 as well. So I'll go ahead and give you my number 2, Antonio Williams. I think is probably, outside of quarterback, the biggest get for the Clemson Tigers as far as legitimate people that could have left for the NFL and made a lot of money and probably had a really successful career, but we get him back for another season. You saw the season he put up this past year, just shy of 1,000 yards, just breakout year. After that freshman campaign, he comes back. His sophomore year is just riddled with injuries. Can't stay on the field, pretty much lost him for the entire season. Comes back his junior season this past year and absolutely balled out, game in, game out. The model of consistency, the guy that Cade can always look to and know that Antonio Williams is going to get open. If given time, he's going to get open. So really big. Couldn't be overstated how big it is to have an Antonio Williams back.
100%. He's my number 2 as well for all the reasons you stated. He's senior leader in that wide receiver room. Has really developed into a really complete, football player. And again, he's going to be the leader in 2025, and he's going to be able to bring up the 2 young studs that are nipping at his heels too. So that'll be really exciting to see and see how those 3, that room in general grows together. So
absolutely. I'll let you go ahead and give your number 3.
Yeah, my number 3 is going to be Blake Miller at right tackle. Just been the model of consistency over the last few years. And so big to have him back for a 4th year. He could have gone to the league. He had a 2nd, 3rd round grade, I believe. Chose to come back. And I think that's big. And so with the continuity that you're going to have on the offensive line, he's going to be at the forefront of that, and massive to get him back.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Miller was my number 3 as well. I think that's a no-brainer. Again, another big retention guy for the Clemson Tigers, and I think really we've talked about it in shows past that the name of the game in college football is going to become retention. That's going to be the number one recipe for whether you're a contender year in and year out, or you're kind of up and down, kind of a yo-yo effect of a program. It's not just enough to recruit the highest level talented guys from the high school ranks. I think even more important and that is super important, but even more important than that is being able to retain the guys once you have them on campus, because NIL and the transfer portal and all the tampering that happens throughout all of college football is crazy. So to have the ability to be able to retain guys like a Blake Miller and Antonio Williams, a Cade Klubnik is huge. Because do you think people didn't call Cade Klubnik this offseason and offer him money to go other places? Guarantee you they did. There are teams out there that would pay him how much at $4 million? What did Carson Beck get? $4 million? There's
something like that, yeah.
They would pay Cade Klubnik just enough, if not more, to go be their quarterback. So getting a guy like Blake Miller back, anchoring that offensive line at the tackle position opposite Tristan Lay over at the other tackle position. I mean, it's huge. Year 2 of Matt Luke. Blake Miller, I mean, he's been a day one dog since the day he walked on campus, and has performed and has gotten better each and every year. I can't wait to see him year 2 under Matt Luke. It's going to be even better, and that's a guy you needed to get back in order to have the year that this roster is capable of. It's an important piece. I know people don't look much at offensive line as like those make or break players, but he's one of those guys that you needed to get back this year.
Yeah, 100%. It's just, it makes everything easier to have that continuity there. And he's going to give you really good football at the same time. So, yeah. What are we, number 4?
Number 4.
Yeah. Number 4. All right. So my number 4 went back and forth. I went with Wade Woodaz as my number 4. I think just because you have so much inexperience and question marks at linebacker, but Wade he's the definitive leader in that group, and excited for the coaching changes, with Tom Allen and obviously Ben Boulware taking a bigger step, taking more of a hands-on part of the linebacker position. I expect improvement as far as that the level of play is concerned, and obviously the potential of Sammy Brown is through the roof, and if you can develop some more depth behind them with more experienced with a more experienced guy running the helm, I think that's that you have a chance to get really good football out of them. So, but yeah, Wade Woodaz, he's going to be the senior leader of this defense now. He's going to be the guy that's responsible for a lot, and so I think I went with him. But it was between him and, well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Wade Woodaz is a great pick there. Makes a ton of sense. You talk about the loss of a Barrett Carter. It's important to retain a guy like Wade Woodaz when you lose a guy like Barrett Carter, because as good as Sammy Brown was this season, he's just going to be a sophomore. He's still got a lot of football to learn, and having that veteran guy in the room and a Wade Woodaz that has just played a ton is going to be invaluable to that room, because we talked about, we got Wade Woodaz, we got Sammy Brown. We know what we have in those two guys. After that, we really don't know. So, you got the portal guy and Jeremiah Alexander coming in. You have Kobe McLeod coming back off of injury. Jamal Anderson. Which guy's going to step up? But having a veteran guy in that room is going to just help those younger guys, those inexperienced guys, to take that next step. So huge get in Wade Woodaz there. Number 5 for me was Damonte Capehart. I put him on my list, even though he wasn't official yet. I just assumed that he was going to be official. I didn't see any reason why the NCAA wouldn't grant him another year. And with him working out with the team and being enrolled in school, he had already made his decision. He was just waiting on, was he officially allowed to play according to the NCAA? And that news comes down, 10 minutes ago. So DeMonte Capehart, number 5 on my list. I think it just solidifies that defensive line, right? That front 4 that are going to roll out there first. Man, it just beefs it up a ton, and it just gives you a space eater in there and another guy to rotate in and out and really just lean on and affect the offensive lines as the season goes on. So, and I look for him to have a fully healthy, great season because that's what he needs. That's what he deserves. And that's ultimately what's going to help him go make a lot of money in the NFL, because I promise you that guy's going to go have a very successful NFL career. But super happy that the Tigers got him back for one more.
Yeah. He was my number 5 as well. Especially since, you lost 2 guys off that 2 deep in Trey Williams and Peyton Page. So like it's big to bring him back. Like we are excited about the prospects of Stefan Green and Vic Burley.
Yep.
And you still got, Heaven Brown Schuler, and you got some pieces there, but bringing back DeMonte Capehart means you don't have to force them to, those guys to be big time contributors early. I think Stefan Green will be that. I think he'll definitely be that 3rd guy in the rotation.
Yes.
When he played this year, he just popped off the screen. Like he jumped out to you. And you guys, and those of you that have been watching, how I felt about Stefan Green for a long time. He was my favorite in that 2023 class.
You've been hyping him up since he signed with Clemson. Well, before he signed with Clemson, but
I think his potential is through the roof. So I think bringing back DeMonte means that you get to rotate guys in, not have to force. You don't need those younger guys to play big time snaps if they don't need to, and obviously the depth and all of that factors in as well. So like you said. Yeah, DeMonte deserves a healthy season, man. He's stuck it out, man. He's his road at Clemson was not the smoothest. He came in as a top 50 player, top 100 player, lots of talent in a loaded defensive line class. He came in the 2020 class with Brian Brzee and Miles Murphy and those guys. Like but he had to sit and wait his turn. Like he was not as ready to go as those guys were. And obviously there were already, experienced defensive linemen that were there. You had, the Tyler Davises of the world that were still there. Like he had to, marinate, and obviously injuries affected that as well. He suffered a lot of injuries early in his career. So he was behind the 8 ball and had to, essentially wait his turn before he was really ready to take that next step. And so now it's just, for him, it's just about staying healthy, because dude, like when his eye pop, like when his eye popping plays are eye pop. Like I will never forget him manhandling that Notre Dame center last year, like just completely ragdolling him and single-handedly blowing up like that. Like the power in his hands is stuff you can't, like that's not coachable. That's just God-given ability. Like probably like the strongest hands on the team, maybe second only to Peter Woods.
Right.
Like he's that guy. So like I think like with a fully healthy season and a full a fully healthy season with great tape, could certainly vault him up the draft boards, because I feel like that was it. He had the opportunity to do that this year, and it didn't work out for him because of the injuries. So
he kind of reminds you of why is the name slipping my mind?
Xavier Thomas?
Yes, XT. Thank you. Kind of reminds you of his kind of journey at Clemson, and how came in as such a highly recruited guy, really a 3-and-done, guaranteed off to the NFL, right? Offered off to bigger and better things. And, for a litany of reasons, it didn't work out that way. right? Injuries, sickness, developing at different speeds, all sorts of things. But similar to XT, stuck it out, right? Trusted the process at Clemson, trusted the coaches. And I really hope, much like XT's last year when he came back, one of my favorite Clemson players, and had an amazing year, right? And off to the NFL and, doing great things. Similarly, I hope that's how DeMonte Capart's final season ultimately works out for him.
100%. Yep.
A couple honorable mentions for me, because I took the same approach that you did, was players that could have left for the NFL, not via transfer portal, but a couple honorable mentions that could have left via transfer portal that probably got offered quite a bit of dough and turned it down ultimately to stay at Clemson. TJ Parker, Peter Woods, Sammy Brown. You could list a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
TJ Moore,
and Brian. The list gets, which is why it was good we limited it, because then we would be like, it would have been tough to parse through all that. It's like, okay, well, right. So Cade will probably be number one, and then beyond that, like, I don't, like, you could have.
Yeah. So I'm glad we took the same approach to our list with, sticking to guys that could have left for the NFL. But shout out to all those guys that could have left for more money at another program and chose to stay with the Clemson Tigers. So those are honorable mentions for me.
Yeah, 100%. All those guys. Yeah, you mentioned TJ, Peter, the Wesco, Moore.
Yeah,
the list goes up. Even some of the true freshmen that we really at different times popped off. You got Elijah Thurman, starting, taking snaps at left tackle before he tears it. Like, I'm excited about him as well, and didn't mention him. Like, they're good. This roster has a lot of really good pieces on it, and that's why we feel the way we do about this team heading into 2025, and that's it's a sign that, hey, like, the struggles the past few seasons have not been solely because you've been deficient in talent, because you certainly have not. In areas, but like, sure. Yeah. The roster as a whole is still in great, and right now I think it's in the best shape it's been, since probably 2019, 2020.
Yeah. Yep.
So
for sure.
Really exciting, man.
No doubt about it. We got 51 people in the live chat right now. Thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribing, make sure you hit that thumbs up button for us. Make sure you share the video with all your college football friends out there that enjoy college football content. We would really appreciate that as we try to grow this channel to our next goal, which is 6,000 subscribers. So appreciate all you guys being here with us tonight. And with that said, Jordan, it's time to turn it over to the comment section for a little bit and chop it up and see what the people are talking about.
Yeah, man. Let's do it. Let's see what y'all are talking about. We had one question that we started from earlier in the show. Dylan asked, who is the freshman to watch in the LSU game? Yeah, that's a good question. Certainly running back Gideon Davidson.
Yeah, Gideon Davidson.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, this far out, I feel like he's going to be too good not to play. I think he's got the juice that Clemson, hasn't had at the running back position since Travis Etienne. That's a lot to put on a true freshman, but that's how I feel. Definitely be watching him. Let's see. People talking about people mentioned Amari Adams. He's a guy I think could work into the rotation too. He just has more talent than guys like Heaven Brown Schuler and Champ Thompson. They may have a leg up on him as far as the years, but Amari Adams he's a five-star for a reason. Like, I mean,
right.
Might be tough to keep him off the field too. In certain spots, even with what you have starting. So, but I think Gideon Davidson, first and foremost, I think is who I would look to. I think he has the clearest route to playing week 1.
I would agree. I mean, that's a guy. That's a guy we need to come in and step up immediately. So
Yeah, I think so too.
His path to starting is more direct than a lot of the other true freshmen that are going to be coming in, right? So it makes sense to put him at that, the most likely of people to impact that game as a true freshman.
Yeah. Some other names, I don't think I think you will. I think you'll have your answer at guard, but who knows? Maybe true freshman Braden Jacobs. I know he's coming in as an offensive tackle, but we cross train our guys. Like maybe what if he comes in and he's too good not to play? Like that could happen. Elijah Thurman. Well, he's not a true freshman, so never mind. But yeah. I like I said, I think Gideon Davidson is the one like the path to playing time is very obvious for him. Come in, if he's the best guy, he's going to play. I think that's just they haven't at least with CJ Spiller, he hasn't been shy to play the true freshman running back. We saw that with Will Shipley his first year. So there's that. Let's see. Intelligent Savage with a good question, kind of similar, but not to the previous question. He said eliminating Braden Jacobs at offensive tackle, Amari Adams at defensive tackle, and Gideon Davidson running back, which way too early 2025 class member surprises Tiger Nation first. Oh, I don't know. That's tough. Like, you have a guy like we've talked about the defensive end position, and I mean you're bringing in Will Helt, to help there, and you still have some questions about some of the other guys. Maybe Ari Watford. Well, that actually scratch that because he tore his ACL. So Ari Watford isn't even a guy that's on the table for that. That sucks. I was literally just about to say Ari Watford, and then I was like, wait, no, he tore his ACL. So
yep, tore his ACL.
You're not going to have him available. I don't know. I really like linebacker Logan Anderson. Maybe he comes in and he's more ready to go. But I think he also is hurt. I think he's also hurt. So, like the guys that I think are probably the that have the chance to play the earliest are guys that I don't think are healthy. So,
yeah,
that's tough. And especially when you eliminate those three. I think those are the three best players in your class. It makes it tough. I don't know.
Didn't he hurt himself, Logan Anderson?
Yeah, that's what I said. I think he's hurt. So I don't think you're going to have him either.
He tore his ACL. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
He probably was an ACL. I can't remember.
I mean, for some reason, I feel like he tore his ACL. I could be wrong about that, but I thought he did.
Yeah,
trying to look and see.
I know Dabo mentioned it because when he was talking about Ari Watford, I think he mentioned Logan Anderson too. So
yeah, I think he tore his ACL. I'm pretty sure. So he's going to be out.
Let's see.
I don't know.
There really doesn't. I don't really see anybody.
I don't think there's a guy past those guys. I mean, I'm looking at Clemson's signee list, and I don't think there's really anybody that kind of jumps off as they're gonna get significant playing time early in the season.
You know, like, yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't think it's, I don't think there's really any of it. Well, shoot, I always want to say Marquise, but it's not Marquise.
Marquez.
It's Marquez. Marquez Henderson.
Marquez Henderson, yeah.
Is like his speed and athleticism could be like maybe you see him a little bit, but you know, I think he's going to be a guy that has to come in and there's an adjustment period for him because you know he just played he played majority running back, and you know he's counting towards the wide receiver numbers. Like maybe he gets some special teams looks, but I don't know. Like it feels like that's a guy they're going to want to redshirt. So it's like beyond that, like a couple of the offensive linemen are interesting. Easton Ware and Rowan Byrne. I think those are guys that Rowan Byrne is he looks like a grown man. I saw I saw the Clemson football promotional video of the early enrollees, and I was like, that man is 25 years old.
He's huge. 6'6", massive individual.
This class largely strikes me as developmental. Like and not in a bad way because I think there's a lot of talent, but it's the fact that you're bringing back so much this year that I don't think there's a path to playing time for most of these guys. I think Gideon Davidson has the clearest path, and then you know Amari Adams and Braden Jacobs, you know, might factor into the two deep potentially, you know, if they win those jobs. I don't see anybody else really that's going to pop off, at least during the season. You know, maybe during spring ball, you know, we hear some things about some of these other guys, but let's see. Jay says, I'm eager to see if Matt Luke will pull the trigger on one of the young guys that they beat out one of the upperclassmen. The talent in that room is rising. Yeah, and that's the one thing that I am interested to see because I think the four guys that are your four starters you're bringing back are going to start for you this year. I think that's I just feel that way. But like left guard is still interesting. Like, yeah, Harris Sewell was the first guy off the bench in a lot of situations, but you still have Colin Sadler, and then like you mentioned, you still have the young guys. You know, you have some second year players.
Yeah,
that redshirted.
Ronan O'Connell.
Yeah, Ronan O'Connell, Mason Wade,
Elijah Thurman, Mason Wade.
Thurman. Yeah, like
you got. There's going to be a battle. There's going to be a battle.
You got some options there.
And I have no doubt Matt Luke will put the 5 best players on the field.
Yeah.
Regardless of how long they've been there.
Yeah, seniority and all that. If they're better than yeah. Let's see. Trying to get B says 2023 defense with the 2024 offense is an elite team. Yeah, I mean, would have been nice to pair those two up.
Yeah, that would have been interesting to see how that team would have fared for sure.
Yeah. Wet Sox is if Green is the first defensive tackle off the bench, who is the second and who is the first defensive end off the bench? Yeah, that's a good question. I think defensive end right now is pretty is easier to talk about. I think they love Jaheim Lawson. I think he's going to be the guy. He'll be the first guy off the bench, I think, and then you'll see Cade Denhoff, and you know, as the senior, he's one of the older guys now. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Jaheim Lawson because I did think he came on a little bit towards the end of the year. Not like he wasn't like the answer to all the problems you had, but he did flash some throughout the season. So maybe with another year with Chris Rump's coaching, maybe he takes that next step. That would be really nice. And that way you have a really, really good, or at least a much more functional rotation. With maybe you don't have to play Will Help every snap, and there's not as much pressure on TJ Parker. Like, that would be nice. Tiggs asks, has Wes found a landing spot yet? Not officially, no.
Nope.
Obviously, the Oklahoma stuff was circulating a good bit, but and I think he might still end up at Oklahoma, but as the defensive coordinator, I don't know. And with Oklahoma, there's been Jim Knowles rumors and all sorts of stuff, so that's probably still being sorted out.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't need to work. So if he doesn't want to go anywhere, he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
He can just collect his paycheck.
Yeah, people talk about Logan Anderson. Yeah, that being the reason why you brought in Jeremiah Alexander.
Yeah. I thought he tore his ACL. I was pretty sure, but I didn't want to say anything that wasn't true.
John says, don't sleep on Darian Mayo getting growing reps during the. Oh yeah, I think as a second-year player, I mean, I think you're going to see a lot more of him.
Yeah.
I think he needed to take this year to get stronger. So we'll kind of develop his body a little bit, because I think the athleticism is there. Like, I think he's a guy that has that level of potential, kind of similar to AJ Hoffler. Like, I think they both needed to be full of, like, Darian Mayo. He's tall, but he's not overly. He wasn't a big guy, super large guy, and he wasn't super strong. I think is the biggest thing. He needed just to get stronger, and we'll see whether those returns he took this year and this offseason, to develop from that aspect, because I think when he gets there physically, he's going to be really, really good, because that frame, that length. Yeah, that's a nightmare.
It's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, really excited about him. Tiger Tom asks, do you guys know a roundabout spending figure for the 2024 Clemson roster? I think OSU spent around $20 million. Yeah, that was the number thrown around. It wasn't $20 million. That's I can say that for sure. Wow. The exact number I couldn't say.
Definitely wasn't $20 million. I wouldn't assume it's anywhere close to $20 million, but they threw around enough money to retain everybody that they needed to retain. So
yeah.
Again, we'll never know the real numbers because they don't have to report stuff like that. But I promise you, like, these dudes are well taken care of.
Yeah, and we're spending more on this year's roster than we did last year. That's for sure.
I think it's safe to say the 2025 roster is probably Clemson's most expensive roster that they've ever had. What that number is, who knows? But with the adjustments that were made by the athletic department towards the end of 2024, with you getting the same points and benefits for donating to 110 Society as you did donating to IPTE, I think that was a clear distinction by Clemson to, like, hey, we need some money so that we can divvy it up for these players so that we can keep our roster together. That was a deliberate move by the athletic department to garner more funds for the NIL, and it worked. So,
very much so. Let's see.
Because, I mean, prior to that, you didn't get really anything for donating to NIL other than, like, I guess the feeling that, oh, yeah, I donated to NIL. But outside of that, you got no benefits for it.
Let's see. Matt B said that safety we picked up late might get some looks. I believe he's referring to Jakarian Keenan. Yeah, he can hit. Yeah, he can hit, man. Yeah, he is a very I that's the one thing I do really like about this safety room. They have some guys. They're going to have some guys that like to hit. They're physical. So, but safety is more about is not just about playing downhill and making big hits. You got to be in. You got to understand where you need to be on the field at all times. It's ultra important that you know where to be on the field at all times because you're the last line of defense.
Yeah, you got to understand what the offense is doing. Got to be able to read the quarterback. Not get caught with your eyes in the wrong place because that's how you get burned really quickly. So we'll see.
We shall see. Dylan asks, who was the sleeper player on last year's roster? To me personally, I think it was Ashton Hampton. And who was this year's sleeper? Sleeper, like a guy that we're not really talking about, I guess, for this year. I'd say I'd go right back into the secondary. I'm going to say Ricardo Jones. I mean, just as a second-year guy, I think he's going to – I think he's going to be one of the front runners to take over that one of those safety spots. You bring back Khalil Barnes and Kylan Griffin has played a lot, but I think Ricardo Jones his ceiling is extremely high, and he's only going to get better. And excited to see kind of how his role increases. And now that as a second-year player, I think they're going to let him. They're going to let him play a good bit. I think.
Yeah.
Excited for him. So.
Yeah.
Ricardo Jones is my pick.
I think. I don't know if you could classify this guy as a sleeper pick, but certainly a guy that has somewhat been forgotten about. Tyler Brown.
That's a good
kind of been forgotten about as far as the wide receiver room goes, with the emergence of TJ Moore and Brian Wesco and obviously getting Antonio Williams back and Tyler Brown just pretty much being unavailable all season. But don't forget about that guy. He can wreak a lot of havoc. So I don't know if you can consider him a sleeper, but
I think that is a sleeper because
somebody that not a lot of Clemson fans are talking about anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect pick, honestly, because I mean it doesn't have to just be a young up and coming player that we haven't really talked about much. A guy like Tyler Brown that we have seen play really, really well and went and fell by the wayside because of injury this past year. Like that's a perfect pick. And with the emergence of the two freshman wide receivers and Antonio Williams coming back, like those guys are getting all the love. It's like, hey, Tyler Brown stepped up when we didn't have any of those guys available.
We didn't have nobody. We didn't have Antonio Williams. He was hurt all year. We didn't have Bryant Wesco. We didn't have TJ Moore. All of our other receivers were relatively unreliable. And here comes freshman, Tyler Brown saving the day. Probably one of the only bright spots on that offense in 2023. So, yeah, that's my sleeper pick for this coming season.
I like this question from B. He says, need a good place to eat in Clemson. Any recommendations? Yeah, you're going to have people give you a lot of the typical stuff. I'm always going to recommend Max Drive-In. If you've never been to Max, it's a little tiny, not like hole in the wall because it's its own place. But Max Drive-In is best hamburger steak I've ever had, best coleslaw I've ever had. Dude, Max Drive-In. They only accept cash, so bring cash. That's the only thing. You can't pay with card. They only accept cash. I believe they still only accept cash. I haven't been in a couple of years, but I love Max Drive-In. So I recommend every person that goes to Clemson goes to Max, and they've been a staple of Clemson for like literally decades. Like they have all this Clemson memorabilia. They have signed stuff from all the players. It's really nice, and it's just a really comfortable. They'll treat you really well. So that's my endorsement.
Jay says Wendy's.
No, I would not recommend. I would not recommend Wendy's. And
the dining hall.
Yeah,
Lord.
Schletter? We had a different word for it.
I can imagine what that word is.
Yeah.
I can imagine what that word
It's
is.
I'm saying
there,
that name has existed for a long time, for a reason.
Having never been there, I can pick up what you're putting down.
Yeah, it's an experience for sure. Being a freshman and you just not. I had my car on campus, so like it was easy for me to go off campus to get food.
Right.
And I didn't live near Schletter. I lived in Core as a freshman, so like it's not like Core's dining hall isn't much better, but like I ate at Schletter like maybe 5 times, maybe, because I happened to be in the area because of class. But like I typically, if I could, I went to Core. That was me. And obviously. And yeah, they got rid of the Wendy's. It's what's it called? It's that pizza place now. I already forgot the name of it. That was the only place that stayed open at Clemson past like 10. So that Wendy's was popping all the time, man.
Boy, get your food early. You get no option.
Yeah. Yeah, they do have that. Yeah, Doubt-It. Yeah, I've been there. I ate there once or twice. It was new when I was graduating, so but I didn't really eat on campus that often at that point because I wasn't living on campus. I love the I don't know if the Moe's is still good there. That's one place I haven't been to in Clemson in a long time. Is the Moe's still good? Oh, it was Peppino's Pizza. Now it's a halal shack. What?
Oh, Lord.
Does it stay open, or is it like do they close at the same time? Because if they do, that's
I guarantee they close.
Clemson alumni 04 says Harcum pancake. Yeah, you're an OG, man. Harcum Hall, man. That's been closed forever. Like that, Clemson alumni 04. So
04, there you go.
Yeah, I'm not calling you old, man. I'm messing. I remember they had a Chili's in there. Oh man, R.I.P. Chili's. That Chili's was not good, but I think it was a staple part of the, especially when you on the game day experience. Like I've been at that Chili's a good bit of time. So, yeah.
What Sox says?
Clemson has changed so much, man. Over even just over the past decade, it's nuts. They have all this stuff now, and it's like they don't have like the infrastructure to really.
They got too many students.
Yeah.
What Sox says? Wilhelmina's Kitchen. I ain't never been there.
So. I've never been. It's in Pendleton. Yeah, I've heard about it. I have not been. Yeah, I've been. Who mentioned the Smoking Pig? Yeah, that's the safe bet. That's always the safe bet. Yeah, Smoking Pig on 76. Yeah, that's good. I think it's a little overrated. Like people hype it up. It's good barbecue, but I don't think it's like it's not even like it's not all that, man. Like it's good. It's good barbecue.
It is good.
But like it gets hyped up, and the publicity it gets, it's just like I think it's a little bit overblown, personally. But I'm also from North Carolina, so I have a bias towards a little bit of a bias towards South Carolina barbecue anyway. So maybe that's what it is.
That is the war.
Yeah, you and I both. Yeah, so it's like, but you grew up in South Carolina, so it's a little bit different. All right, let's do a couple more. I like these off, just not football conversations. It's fun. Jay says, "Yeah, I never trusted the Chili's, and you were a smart man. That food was not good, but it built character. It built character." Waffle House in Central, not the Clemson one. Yes, that is a big distinction. Yeah, I've been to both of those. Yeah, the Waffle House in Central is like 10 times better. 10 times better. It's like across the street from the Walmart. It's the super Walmart, not the neighborhood Walmart that they have on. Yeah, it's good. David asks, East or West North Carolina barbecue. I'm an Eastern guy. Just my family is from there. And I like I don't mind like tomato based sauces. Like I don't. It's not my favorite. Like I don't go out of my way to get it.
Yeah.
But like I've always been. I've grown up on vinegar based sauces. That's always been my thing. So I know it's an acquired taste for some people. Like they just if you didn't have it growing up, it's like you're not going to get it. It's kind of like grit. It's like the grits of barbecue. Like
yeah, I mean
like, if you didn't grow up eating it, you're probably not going to like it as much as
I enjoy the vinegar based. I mean, I grew up in South Carolina, so different barbecue, but I still enjoy the Eastern North Carolina vinegar based barbecue. I think it's good. I don't know.
I don't know why I compared it to grits. That was
terrible South Carolinian, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I like South Carolina barbecue, so like, hey, it's
I still like the mustard based sauces too. Like
the mustard. Hey, like
I like it.
My dad can't stand mustard. Like that. That's one thing I didn't get from him is like I like mustard. He has a visceral like he wants to throw up type of reaction when he eats mustard. Like
it's funny, man. Barbecue is like one of those. It's such a controversial, I guess, topic. Like you got your Texas barbecue, and then your South Carolina barbecue, and Eastern and Western North Carolina barbecue, and Memphis barbecue, and it's just. I think we all can agree barbecue is really good, and if you give other barbecues a chance, they're not all bad. I like Texas barbecue too; it's pretty good.
I do. Even though I question. They qualify what they call barbecue is because
yes, it is different. Yes,
like it's like especially like in Eastern North Carolina when you say like barbecue, that means like specifically like that means barbecue pork,
pig,
pig specifically,
pig,
and then like then you have then you have to specify like if you say barbecue chicken, that's barbecue, but like barbecue when you just say barbecue, that is the pig. Like no, it's not brisket, it's not. I don't know. It's a cultural thing. Like that's the one thing. That's the one beef I have with Texas. Like their term is like it's brisket. It's not barbecue, man. Like stop.
Yeah, like if you went to like a big barbecue, like where I grew up in South Carolina, like if you went to a big barbecue, they were like slow roasting like a whole pig. Like on a skewer like that.
Exactly.
That thing's just smoking all day. So it is a little bit different in that fact. Yeah, but. Their version of barbecue, if you give it a chance, it's good.
It's good. It's good.
It's good.
It's good.
Their smoked sausage and all that stuff. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, they know what they're doing. It's just what.
It's different. So if you go there expecting like I'm getting, Carolina barbecue, you're not getting that. So just go eat it for what it is, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think people get like, I don't know, a little too much with it. It's like, man, just go eat it for what it is. It's good.
It's a cultural like they have like it's a culture.
It's good smoked meat. We can have arguments that like, this is better or that is better, but like, it's still good.
It's all pretty good.
Anytime you slow smoke meat, it's probably gonna taste good.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be good as long if you know what you're doing. Like
if you know what you're doing, it's gonna taste good. So.
David Lowry mentions Kansas City barbecue. Yeah, I've heard a lot. I've never had Kansas City, but that's one of
I haven't either. So
I've never had it. Kansas City and St. Louis. I've had like St. Louis style like ribs and stuff, but like I've never like went to like had true like authentic St. Louis or Kansas City.
I've never been to those places, so no. I wouldn't know. But Obviously grew up on South Carolina barbecue, had both Eastern and Western North Carolina barbecue. I lived in Texas for 4 years, so had plenty of their barbecue. So, yeah.
Yeah, but that's on my bucket list. Need to
I'm
go.
somewhat traveled in the barbecue world.
Yeah, I'm trying to expand my horizon. I mean, I've had a lot of barbecue, but like I'm trying to expand. Like I mentioned, yeah, Kansas City is on the docket, and in St. Louis, I have not had either one of those, and they say good things about them.
Tig says New York style is the best.
What is New York style? What is New York style barbecue?
I don't know.
Unless he's talking about pizza.
I lived in upstate New York for quite a
I
long
know. That's why I deferred to you, because I was like, do they have a barbecue standard? Like, I've never heard of it. Like, that's surprising.
I didn't have a ton of barbecue when I was up there, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
I went to a place in Syracuse called Dinosaur Barbecue one time. It was pretty good. I think it's similar to like the place in Clemson, to where it's like sort of overhyped.
Yeah,
a little bit, but it's good. It's good barbecue.
And I bet like a lot of barbecue places. I mean, like you're imitating. It's a Southern staple, so you're kind of imitating. Like, but there are people that move up there and they establish barbecue joints and stuff, and like it's all authentic stuff. But
I may be ignorant to it, but I don't think New York has a barbecue style. I think they
I've never heard of it.
Emulate what the South does with that, but I mean that particular place I went to, that's the only barbecue spot I went to up there. It was pretty good, but it was just a version of Southern barbecue. That's all it was. Now their pizza, on the other hand, really good. New York style pizza is amazing. So
they've got the market cornered.
They do got that the market cornered on the pizza, for sure.
It's. People when I mention in Chicago with pizza, like Chicago, when Chicago comes up, people like either have like the most visceral reaction to it, or they're like, "Oh man, I love Chicago, like deep dish pizza." Like my uncle worked for Northwestern, so I went up to Chicago a couple of times.
Yeah, I've never had a Chicago deep dish.
It's good. It's good.
I want to try it one day.
Yeah.
I've never had the opportunity to try, like, I guess, authentic Chicago deep dish. But yeah, it looks good. Like,
it's good. It's good.
Pizza's like another one of those things where it's like, a war, an all-out war based on, where you're from and your preference.
Yeah.
Similar to barbecue.
All right, I think that's going to do it for us. We're hitting the 2.5 hour mark. This was fun. It was fun. I always love when we get completely off of start talking about food.
Totally off topic, but yeah, it's always fun. Appreciate you guys. Still got 42 people hanging out with us here, 2.5 hours in. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. As you guys know, we do this show all throughout the off season. The All In Show goes nowhere. We don't believe in the off season. We're going to talk football from now until we kick off against LSU and Death Valley in August. So stick with us. We'll be talking recruiting. We'll be talking spring practice. We'll be talking all sorts of stuff between now and then. So hopefully you guys will consider subscribing if you're not already. Hit that like button and continue coming out and hanging out with us every Wednesday, 8 p.m. We'll be right here.
Yes, we will.
Oh, no, Wet Sox. Nope, we ain't doing that here. No.
Well, one time for the one time. He's trying to
one time.
He's trying to blow up the live chat.
No.
I like Tig's answer. I voted for Dabo. Yeah,
I voted for Dabo. No, not here. We answer almost anything, but not
almost anything. That's one of the things we want.
All right, guys. It's been a fun one. Appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. We'll see you next Wednesday. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.